again, and welcome. We're happy to have you here on our Summit Inspire, Connecting to Your Soul's Work. And we are especially happy to have our guest with us today. We have Cami Gildner. She is a life and leadership empowerment coach, a speaker, a best-selling author, and perhaps even more importantly, Cami is a woods walker, a stargazer, a horse lover. She was raised on the wide open plains of Colorado against the majestic Rocky Mountains. I was raised in that area. They're so beautiful. And wilderness fueled her soul from an early age. With a young, enchanted mind, she gained an early understanding that the natural world brings clarity, provides space to dream, and opens our eyes to views of worlds unseen before us. Her early dreams journeyed her into a wildly successful 20-year executive career, yet deep in her heart, she was hearing a calling for something more. Whispers. An inner knowing. A lot of you probably know what that's like and have heard that. Her reconnection to this inner knowing that nature provided opened her own world of transformation from executive to entrepreneur. And today, Cami helps executives, entrepreneurs, and truth seekers around the world live out loud into a passionate and meaningful life, leading them to connect to their inner gifts, discover new meaning and new paths. Her clients step into intentional action fueled with vitality and courage. In addition, Cami founded Extraordinary Women Connect, and that is a series of intimate events for wildly successful women connecting in meaning, purpose, and shared support. And you can find out more about her from syzygy-co.com. It's syzygy-co.com. So welcome, Cami. We're so happy to have
Thank you so much, Regina. I'm really thrilled to be here. This is a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yes, and as you know, it's near and dear to mine as well. I think you're just a perfect fit for our topic here today.
No, thank you.
And I know you came out with a beautiful book just last month, so I wanted to start in with that. It's a best-selling book. It's called Fire Dancer, Your Spiral Journey to a Life of Passion and Purpose. And I've had the delight to be able to go through quite a bit of your book and have really enjoyed that. You are a beautiful author. Just a beautiful
thank you so
writer.
much.
So
I enjoy your writing.
Yeah, I can tell. It's like your soul is just coming right out on the page. Just beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I know that you, in that book, you tell the story about how you found your soul's work. Do you want to just tell our audience about that?
Sure. I was, as you mentioned in my bio, I was working in the corporate world for many years. I had a great job. It took me all around the world, and it really gave me a lot of opportunities that a little small farm girl that I started out as didn't expect to have in my lifetime. So I was very, very fortunate about it. But there was a place where I started hearing this calling for something more in my life. And I didn't know what it was. And then I didn't even realize at first that it was a calling, right? It was this just maybe knowing inside that something was supposed to shift, and maybe a pushing inside that something was supposed to shift. And I started hearing some of the whisperings. I think when I went to Tibet, that was my very first. I was there. I was so far removed from everything that was normal in my day-to-day life. Just sitting and playing in the dirt, suddenly new ideas and new thoughts started coming up to me. And I came back from that trip and started having all kinds of very interesting dreams that were guiding me that maybe there was something different in my life. And my corporate work started to be full of a lot of tension, and I didn't enjoy it so much. I started getting sick. I was catching every flu and bug and virus that was out there. A lot of my relationships at work were at odds where they had never been in the past. In fact, I was at odds with my very favorite boss of all times, which was just heartbreaking at the time. I was like, what is going on here? So there was all this turmoil that was going on. And then my boss moved into a new role, and I got a new boss, and the tension continued. And one day I get a call into his office, and my new boss says to me, he says, your position has been eliminated. It's gone. And I was heartbroken, right? I was like, this was my whole life. I had built my whole career, my whole life to doing what I was doing. I was very tuned into my title. I was very proud of that title. And my ego, lauded that title. And suddenly that was gone. I left that day with no cell phone, no computer, and no title. And I was really, really, torn apart. And I started hearing a lot of feedback from a lot of my colleagues saying, take some time. You've been working so hard. Take some time. And I was like, I got to go look for my new job, right? And it kept coming back into me, take some time, take some time. And so finally I thought, okay, well, I'll listen. So I said, I'll take a month. I'll give myself a month to do this. So I take a beautiful month. I'm hiking, I'm riding horses, I'm being out in nature, and I'm going and visiting friends and family that, I hadn't been spending enough time with in the past because I was working so much. And that month almost was about to the end. And on July 29th, 2008, which was the end of my month, was July 30th was going to be the end of my month. On July 29th, my father passed away and shook my world. Suddenly the job didn't matter. Suddenly, none of that mattered. It was just, I just needed to be with family, and I needed to be in that sadness and that sorrow. And as I stopped in that sorrow, I started to really recall all the lessons that my father had taught me. And in exploring, and I actually wrote a poem that was about what my dad taught me. And when I wrote that poem, I realized how disconnected I was from who I was. I had somewhere gotten lost along the way from some of the very core soul values of me that I'd let some pieces of me go, right? There was a lot of pieces of me that were missing. And so I took a lot of time for probably about, I think it was like 17 months, that I took time and I started just reconnecting back to myself. I started working with some coaches and reconnecting back to my gifts, my stories that mattered most to me in my life. And suddenly I started seeing glimpses that there was something different for me. And it's funny because a lot of people kept saying, why don't you go start your own business? And I was like, it was 2008, right? It was the fall of 2008, and there was not any VP of marketing jobs around. It was right when the economy crashed. So I always say my first gift was I got laid off. My second gift was I got laid off in 2008. So with that space and time, there was finally a place where it all connected for me that I was supposed to do something different in my life. And when I found that, I knew it was my purpose.
And I think in retrospect, it's easier to look back and see, oh, now I see why this mess, what the message was in that for me. But in the middle of that, that's a little trickier to identify.
Totally. It's you don't know where it's taking. And you're like, and it can be dark sometimes. It can be really scary, and you can have all kinds of fear show up in that time.
Do you have any thoughts for people that if they feel like their life is falling apart, what would you say to them? Okay, like step back, reassess. How do they best see more clearly what the universe is telling them?
I think that one of the best ways to do that is really to step back, to start with in your own stories of your lifetime, where stories where you felt most on fire in your life. So go back and think about where are those times in my life where I just felt like everything was clicking for me, everything was right, and everything was moving really smoothly. And if you look at those stories, what will happen is that you'll start to see those are most likely times where you were really living into your strengths, what you're really, really good at in this life, your passions, and your values. And so those were all really connected and aligned. And so it starts to give you clues of who it is you are, what your values are, and who you are at your very essence. And so that's a really good place. The other piece I think that's really important is to get out in nature. Because, and as I mentioned, at that time for me, I started taking a lot more time in nature because I had the space and time. But even now, today, when I feel like life is really, really full, I know how important it is to stop and get out in nature, because it opens up our heart. It opens up our ability to be aware of what's going on in our life, to be able to start connecting dots of different circumstances.
So what do you think it is about nature that provides that? Is it because nature just has this natural synchronicity and like this trust that everything is provided that's needed, and just this allowing, moving through life? I mean, what do you think offers that?
I think it's a lot of that. I think there's a natural rhythm in nature that, our day-to-day lives are so tied to phones, to cell phones and computers and technology, that if we can get out of that frazzled energy of technology and people and happenings in our life, and we can get out into nature and be in that energy, it changes the vibe, the way that we are resonating. It shifts things inside of us. It slows us down to the pace of nature. And I think it also offers the universe, if we open up and become aware, opens up all kinds of signposts that will guide us into new knowings and new awareness.
And it feels to me like it rises something from within us. Just makes it closer to the outside, easier.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, makes sense. Our inner self just more a part of who we are.
Oh, absolutely. And I like what you say when you say that it rises something from within us, because very often what I'm saying is it's taking that light inside of us and shining it brightly out to the world. It takes down the walls that we so often put up in our day-to-day lives, and because we run into things, and so the more we can open up our heart and our energy that we're putting into the world, and be cognizant of how we're resonating in the world, it shifts things for us. And that's what opens up these new pathways that you don't even know exist, right? I mean, new ideas that when you do that, what happens is it's like you start finding this exploration, and you start hearing what your heart wants to happen. And what's amazing is that the universe starts dropping in all these wonderful gifts for us, that people come into our lives that we need to meet, or we get an opportunity that shows up on our door that wasn't there the week before because our heart has opened up to it.
I was listening to Dr. Wayne Dyer talk about the 9 months in the womb, like everything is provided for us, and then outside of that, we're the one that, if that stops, we're the one that stops us. Like you're saying, that synchronicity of everything that we need is provided for us when we're in tune with that and
right.
in that flow, and in tune with what action we need to take as well. But yeah,
right.
I love that, and the way you said to open up and that it releases those walls. I think it's interesting that that's so vulnerable, and at the same time, when that inner you comes out, you feel safe, even though you're more vulnerable. You
right.
can be rejected, and it's okay. You can be
right.
okay with that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and know that when the rejections come, there was probably a reason behind it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I can go back to when I was in that pathway of trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. That 17 months that I was talking about, where I was, that time frame before I launched into my company. I'd go on these job interviews, and I'd be going, "Oh God, I hope I don't get this job," right? And so there was something there and then I wouldn't get the job, of course, right? And It was because I was supposed to go in a different direction. So trusting when something doesn't happen for us, that there's another place for us to be that is more aligned to who we are and what we're meant to be doing in the world.
I agree. That's beautiful. And I know you've mentioned to me that women often come to you because they're hearing a calling for something more. They don't know what it is. So maybe you can add to this in addition to what you've already said, that how do you help them find out what it is that they're meant to do?
Yeah, I think it's like, and as I was mentioning a lot of my way that I work with clients ties right back to the journeys that I went through. So I get them out in nature. I do retreats with my clients. So they have, a lot of times we're on the phone, but then they come in for an intensive weekend out in nature. So that's one way that we're bringing them into their journey. I incorporate horses into that work, which is really amazing. It's beautiful work, bringing the horses into the work. I am a longtime horse person, so I'm able to bring equine guided coaching into my client's life, and it shifts and changes lives in all kinds of ways.
And what do you feel like horses specifically bring?
I think horses, very similar to what nature brings. I think horses help us tune into our heart in a bigger way. They have very big heart space energy, and when we get into their presence, there's some sort of a connection with their heart space and our heart space, and again, we're just opening up. And they can also really mirror what's going on inside of us. So if we've got fear going inside of ourselves, or if we've got resistance to something, the way the horses will interact and engage with my clients is that very often there's something that is mirroring within them. So it's pretty fascinating work. It's really, really fascinating.
I think horses to me are so strong and courageous, and yet there's something about them that's very honoring and humble. They just have that beautiful mix of that strength, but a gentleness as well.
Yeah. Talk about being in the moment, right? They're not somewhere else. They're always right here in this moment. So that they can really offer a good practice for that for us.
They're not afraid of being judged or
no.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it takes people out of their mind and opens them up into their body a little bit more. So it's really very beautiful.
And expound on that, just the importance of bringing yourself into your body.
Into the body. I think that, our society in general is a very left brain kind of thinking, right? It's like we are doing, and so we're always up in our head. And we're having conversations always up in our head. And if we can come down and let things come up through us and learn to listen to our heart, to speak from, that very core of who we are, it changes what's flowing from us. It's more natural, it's more authentic, it's truly you, versus this, oh God, how do I need to position myself? How do I need to? It's important to really let things flow up from your heart, I believe, and your core.
I agree with that. And what factors do you believe keep people stuck in work that they don't love, or relationships that aren't right, or money beliefs that keep them broke, that sort of thing? What keeps people?
Yeah, fear is a huge thing, right? I think fear stops a lot of people. Fear and emotions that they don't know, they kind of push those emotions down. They get into the day-to-day life, and sometimes they don't even recognize how out of sorts things might be. That was something that, I go back to my own story. I didn't realize how out of sorts things were for me when in those last couple of years in my corporate world, when, my health was telling me, I was getting all these signposts that things were supposed to shift. And so sometimes we don't even know that we really need to move from that job or from that relationship. And you start seeing those signposts that, yeah, something's supposed to shift. But then fear will keep people stopped. I think, fear is one of them. I think another one is not knowing who you are, not knowing or having the clarity around what it is you do want. So they're like, I don't want this, but I don't know what it is I want. And so that clarity is a big, important piece. Finding the clarity about who you are and what you want.
And I think sometimes we're so busy that we feel like we don't have time to ask those questions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the third one that I was going to say. Well, there's actually 4 that I play with. So there's the fear, there's the clarity, there is the planning, not having the space and time to even think about it, to be able to even ask the questions, as you said. What are the questions to ask? I don't know. I'm going 24/7, and I don't have time to even think about this. And then the other one is people will play small because it's safe. And yeah, and so I play a lot with those 4 different areas that keeps people stuck, because if it's the 4th one, if you're playing safe, it's like, gosh, that doesn't feel comfortable when I step up into this bigger space or really own something that I'm being called to do. And so I'm just going to stay back here where it feels really safe. I don't need to put my voice out there, kind of thing. So those are the 4 that I am often working with clients when they are feeling stuck.
And what do you think is one of your most helpful practices or exercises that help people get out of that, if there's something you're comfortable sharing?
Depending on which stage of that change they're in, whether it's from a clarity, if it's a clarity perspective, they're not sure where they want to go. They want something new, but they don't know what it is. I think the practices there really is getting clear about who you are, your strengths, your passions, your values, what matters to you, how you want to make a difference with that essence of you. And that opens up a whole new spectrum of ideas of what can happen, right? It's the spectrum of, I could do A, B, or C. But I don't know which one is right. So then you start taking it back to your values and who you are and what you want to stand for, and you go, oh, B's right for me. So you start to see that connection. So that's from the clarity perspective. From the fear perspective, and everybody hits all of these. It's not like it's like you go into this box and you'll always be in this box. It's like in different stages of change, you hit every single one of these. There's a clarity phase. When you get into that fear stage where it's like, oh gosh, do I really want to leave my job? Do I really want to leave this relationship? You have to start thinking through what is it that I'm really afraid of? Really getting, and early on I wanted to push the fear down. When I ran into fear, when I was starting my business, I was like, I'm a positive thinker. I like to think in the positive, right? I don't want to look at the fear. And you can't ignore the fear. You have to become friends with that fear. You have to wrap love around that fear and compassion around that fear, because that fear can't exist with love and compassion wrapped around it. And it's just trying to keep you safe, right?
And it's helpful information.
Yeah, totally. There's great information in that. So that's where I do a lot of fear work, helping people through their fear. If you get into the planning side of it, where the planning parts are not, where I just don't have space and time to even be able to think about the questions, it is helping them slow down. What are your priorities? What are the things? Because there's a good chance that every single one of us has things that we spend time on that are really not serving us well. And so finding what those things are that you can let go of to make up space for that contemplation, if you will.
And I know there was a know that you even had a friend that said, I don't even know who you are anymore.
Oh, I did.
We lose ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was and it was so funny because this was, back in my corporate day when she said that to me. And at the time I was like, oh, she just does not understand my busy life. I mean, it was like, and it was so full of ego that it was ridiculous. Right. I look back at that now and I go, oh my God, she was so right. Who was I? So, yeah.
We all know what that feels like.
Yeah.
To lose ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And then from the fourth one, the plain small one, I'd say the practices around that are learning to take step by step, just a smaller step where you're stepping out onto that edge of discomfort, where it's like, ooh, this feels a little bit uncomfortable. And keep pushing that edge and keep pushing that edge. So that's kind of the spectrum. It's the cycle, right? It's the clarity, it's the fear, it's the planning, and it's the playing larger. And if you play in that spectrum, you're going to come back again to the clarity again. It's going to come back and show up for you again. But there's ways that you can maneuver through all of those and take you through it.
And like you relate it to nature of just, it's like a growing tree, just
right.
Inch by inch, centimeter by centimeter, we're growing and stretching and becoming more of ourselves.
Yeah. I often will, and I love an analogy of a tree. I really do. I think that's because it's expanding, it's growing. I think the other analogy that I use is a spiral. And because in a spiral, we start with the core of who we are, and we have life experiences and learnings that we're bringing into our lives, and we grow and we expand. And then we have more life experiences, and we grow and we expand. And so it keeps growing up. So it's like our world opens up in that same sort of way. Again, it expands into a bigger, broader world. The more we can feed that spiral.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Cami. And we have just another minute or two. Are there any last thoughts that you want to share?
Oh, if anyone is really hearing this calling for something more, take the time, take the space, listen to your heart, watch for the signposts, go get out into nature and see what's showing up for you, and let the signposts drop in, because they're there if you just listen and hear. And there's so much for you when you get through to that other side of, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Your soul's work is important. You are on this earth because you are supposed to be delivering something into the world. And I believe that with my whole heart. And I believe that there are people right now who need your gifts. And who are you to withhold those gifts from those people who need your gifts? So get out, keep moving, keep growing, keep evolving, and explore and find who you are and what you're supposed to do in this world.
That's beautiful. Thank you. When my clients are struggling, stretching, that's what I tell them. You think of those people who are suffering, whose lives you're going to change. Do it for them. Stretch yourself for them.
And it's such a catalyst, right? Yeah. When you can put it on to, gosh, I'm supposed to be helping people and I can help people. That's what helps you stretch.
And how nice for people when they feel that call to know that the universe will provide what they need to be able to bring their gifts forward and fulfill what they're here to do. And so we just have a moment more for you to share your free gift for our listeners.
Okay. So I have a quiz, and it's called Your Next Bold Move. And your next bold move is going to help you figure out what stage of change you are in and what it is you need to help maneuver through. So I have the quiz will tell you if you're a wandering way seeker, and a wandering way seeker is helping you find that clarity. It will tell you if you, and I'm going to have to cheat here, it's a vigilant visionary. So is there fear holding you back? It will tell you if you are a dreaming diva, or are you a planner that actually gets out and gets things done. And the fourth one is, are you an emerging expert? So we'll tell you where you are in your cycle of change right now, And it's going to give you great tips on how do you move back into the next step and how do you keep growing. And the more you can learn about these 4 different categories and how do you move through them, you're going to be mastering how you move through your own life.
Awesome. Wonderful. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and one other thing, and the first 5 people who take the quiz after this launches will have a free complimentary strategy session with me to really just take their journey into a deeper place. So the first 5.
Beautiful. So yeah, you listeners out there, be sure to take advantage of that. I want to take the quiz myself. That sounds like a lot of fun. And then take advantage. Jump right in. You should have the link already to be able to click on that free gift. Be one of the first 5 so that you can get a free consultation with her as well. Now, thank you so much, Cami. We appreciate your expertise and all of the thoughts that you've shared with us.
And thank you for doing what you're doing and putting this out into the world because it's important.
Yep, I love it. Bye-bye.
Bye.